Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. In Ukraine, an infant child is among 3 people killed and dozens wounded after Russian drone and missile strikes hit Kyiv overnight. There are also reports that the country's main government building has been hit. Our correspondent Oz Kateji is joining us here live from Kyiv with the latest. Oz, so we know that there were no casualties in the government building attack, but what was the response of the Ukrainian government to these events?
Well, obviously, this was the largest ever Russian air attack against Ukraine since the war began. The Ukrainian Air Force reporting 810 drones were launched, 9 cruise missiles and 4 ballistic missiles. Strong response from the Ukrainian government this morning after the Cabinet of Ministers building in the central part of Kyiv, the main government building, as it were, was targeted. The upper floors were on fire in the early hours of the morning. We do understand that fire has now been put out, but the response from Zelensky this morning saying, such killings now, when real diplomacy could have already begun long ago, are a deliberate crime and prolongation of the war. It has been repeatedly said in Washington that sanctions will follow a refusal to talk. We must implement everything that was agreed to in Paris. So very, very open message there to the US government that the Ukrainians are expecting some kind of response to these sorts of attacks that you are seeing on your screen. This attack against the Cabinet of Ministers building, the first time a government building, a major government building, has been attacked since the full-scale invasion began. The Ukrainian government will really be looking towards Washington for some kind of response to this. 2 people have been killed in one of the apartment strikes, a mother and her newborn child. So again, a very difficult day for the Ukrainians. Air defense engaged throughout the early hours of Sunday morning. Another dark day for Ukrainians without any kind of response from Western countries, particularly to an attack on government buildings. It's going to draw some serious criticism from the Ukrainian government. I mean, the thinly veiled message from Zelensky to Washington about the promise of sanctions whenever the promise of the threat of sanctions for Russia's non-compliance with Trump's demands to begin negotiations between Kyiv and Moscow. These will eventually run out of steam with the Ukrainians if there is no further action. So the Ukrainians are very clear what they want to see happen. But for now, another difficult day for Ukrainians, counting their dead, counting their injured, and now looking at a direct Russian attack on a Ukrainian government building in the largest ever aerial assault launched by Russia since the full-scale invasion began.
Oz Kateji reporting live from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Oz, thank you very much for being here with us today. Now, latest reports from Kyiv show another grim milestone in Russian attacks on the Ukrainian capital, with over 800 drones hurtling towards civilian targets across the city. In another first in Russia's campaign of terror, the main building of Ukraine's government, located right next to the nation's parliament, was also damaged in the strike. Joining us now is Alexei Goncharenko, Ukrainian MP representing European Solidarity. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So can you tell us where were you actually when this attack happened? Were you anywhere near this particular location in the capital?
I wasn't near this particular location, but I think it's very symbolic that Russians attacked Ukrainian government building. You know that a week ago, Russians killed a Ukrainian member of the parliament, former speaker of the parliament, Andriy Parubiy. Now this attack on governmental building looks like it's a new escalation from Russians, attack on the leaders of the country and attempt to decapitate Ukraine in this continuing war of aggression.
And this is something we haven't really seen before, right? And neither did Ukraine attack political leaders in Russia. Generals and members of the military were targeted, but never political leaders. So is Russia actually sending a signal to the world that it is not going to negotiate?
I think that's exactly the signal that they're sending. They don't want any peace. They are escalating, and they are escalating almost every day. And the reason why they're doing this, unfortunately, they feel themselves emboldened after very weak reaction on all what was done previously by them on this meeting in Paris of coalition of willing, which will, this coalition of willing, there is will of something, but not clear of what, because there is no result. And every such meeting with no result just emboldens Russia. Alaska summit, red carpet, handshaking with Trump, emboldened Putin. Weak reaction from Europe, emboldened Putin. No season of Russian frozen assets, emboldens Putin. No decision to send boots on the ground, not to fight against Russians, but to have a contingent in Ukraine to train Ukrainian military personnel. This emboldens Russia. Unfortunately, we see here step by step where Putin thinks that the West shows that it is weak, and that's why he is so emboldened now.
What would need to happen? What sort of red line would Russia need to cross to garner a specific response, in your view? Do more people have to die in order to make the leadership in the West realize that Russia really isn't anywhere near prepared to engage in meaningful and genuine peace negotiations, and instead it keeps attacking Ukraine with greater and greater strength?
I really already don't know what should be a new red line. Escalation after escalation, more and more attacks, more and more killed civilians, now attacks against the government. I don't know what else should happen. And but what I do know that the only language which Putin understands is the language of strength. So if he doesn't see strength from our partners, he will escalate more. So all those who are saying, "Oh, we shouldn't bother Russia too much. Maybe that will lead us to escalation. Maybe that will lead us to Third World War, to a nuclear strikes." Fortunately, I think exactly that's what's happening. Because step after step, we're moving to a nuclear war. Because I don't know what else was not still used by Putin. And that's how he is pushing these boundaries more and more and more, not feeling a response. And quite opposite, he feels that now relationships between Ukraine and Poland are difficult. Hungary, Slovakia, administration of the President of the United States. So he tries, that's an old imperial principle, divide et impera, divide and rule. And unfortunately, he manages to succeed in this. So the only answer to this should be uniting of all countries, strong reaction from Poland too. And that's the only way if we want to prevent the worst possible scenario with a full-scale war, not just in Ukraine, but in the continent in general.
And as a member of parliament, do you actually have an option to launch any sort of initiative which would perhaps compel the Ukrainian government or encourage it to begin some sort of new diplomatic effort aimed directly at Ukraine's allies, signaling that, look, this is a major red line, a government building was struck, people could have died, and so there needs to be a reaction? Is it within the power of the Ukrainian parliament to initiate such an effort?
It's definitely in the power of Ukrainian parliament, but it's not needed. Because I am from opposition party. I have a lot of questions about what's going on inside Ukraine. But speaking about diplomatical efforts of Ukrainian government, they do everything they can. It's not question to Ukrainian government that they don't want to do something. It's the question to our allies and to the government of European countries and of the United States of America, what will be done. And unfortunately here, I can only address, speak, explain what I am doing. So I really don't know what should else happen that would lead us. One simple question, why Russian frozen assets are not seized? 300 billion euros, which will give possibility to buy weapons, which will give us a huge leverage, which will show to Putin that it's not all anymore on the table, because he will try to take back even this money just to arm himself even more for a future attack against Europe. So it's crazy not to do this. So is it really in a cold blood and in a cold head European governments want to give back Russia this money, and just after this to die from the missiles which will be produced on this money? But still, after 3.5 years, there is no decision. I really don't know what else should happen.
And one quick question, because we also have the tragic human story of ordinary Ukrainians in the capital dying or being injured by these strikes. Do you think that at this stage they are receiving all the help that they need? And also there is a need for reconstruction effort, right? So this would be another argument to use Russian assets to drive such efforts for reconstruction, right?
You see now apartment of people which is absolutely destroyed. These people, I hope they are alive. They need to live somewhere. Where to do this? And such stories are in thousands in Ukraine, in thousands, which requires billions of euros. And there is this money from aggressor, but they are not seized. And I can't understand why. And that is something which can be done quickly and now, and by Europe itself, without United States of America, but no result.
Oleksiy Goncharenko, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, was our guest today here on TVP World News. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World News. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.